Hello friends, Sarah here. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it has been way too long, just like my last video from the last time I uploaded. I apologize, life's been kind of crazy and Animal Crossing has taken over my life. I've been playing so much Animal Crossing, haven't felt super motivated to read, and I had been stuck in a bit of a reading slump trying to get through this one book that I finally managed to push through, so I've kind of broken through that, and today we are going to be reviewing the book that I most recently finished. This is not the book that had me in the reading slump, this is the book that came after, and I flew through it because compared to the reading slump book, I mean, it was just amazing. So today I'm going to be reviewing The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, Rebecca Kuang. This was just a well-needed push after my reading slump book, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go right into this. So I feel like one of the best ways to describe this book is to tell you what I think it isn't. This is not a fantasy where the heroine is striving to do the right thing and is noble in the face of adversity. This is not a fantasy where the heroine is someone who goes from being naive to mature over the course of the book and develops into a strong and admirable person. This is not that book, and I enjoyed this a lot because of that. So our main character is Runin Fong. She goes by Rin and is a teenage war orphan who is raised by cruel and unloving adoptive parents. Through intense study and dedication, she tests into Seingard, the most prestigious military academy on the main continent of Nikan. The book is divided into three parts, the first of which focuses on her time at the academy. There is a magic system, and it's during her time at the academy that Rin discovers that she possesses abilities that most humans don't. The magic system is interesting and a little slippery, I guess. Each character with magic is unique in what they can do and how they do it, which keeps the reader on their toes. The other two parts take place away from the academy and focus more on wartime related activities, as you might surmise would happen from the title of the book. Nikan has very tenuous relations with the nearby island nation of Mugen, and Rin finds herself becoming a part of the fight to protect her country and her people from an impending invasion by the Federation of Mugen. The book's title refers to a series of conflicts known as the First, Second, and Third Poppy Wars. The story takes place after the Second Poppy War, with a third looming in the near distance. So Rebecca Kuang took direct inspiration from true events during the Second Sino-Japanese War, and there are parallels to real-world countries and histories found in the fictional country of Nikan, the enemy island of Mugen, the often mentioned allies, the Hesperians, and all three of their interactions together. Now, I have a strong stomach for content that inspires trigger warnings for books. One might even say that I'm sort of like a detached reader, if that makes sense. I love fiction, but I rarely get super emotional reading fiction. I don't know, maybe it just depends on the kind of book I'm reading, but I just don't tend to get super emotional, like anxious or sad or depressed or elated reading books. I feel like descriptions of violence are common in fantasy and high fantasy in particular, and I'm normally not bothered by that kind of thing at all. But I cannot emphasize enough, without spoilers, just how horrific some of the passages in this book were and how they made me feel. There are some very dark things in this book that truly floored me and had me feeling very disturbed. The fact that this book is based in part off of real life events is astounding and horrible. This book will stick with me if only for those passages alone. So let me move on. Having said that, having given that warning, I could go on and on about those parts of the book, but I'm going to move on. The book has a dark vibe from the outset and it doesn't let up. So if you're looking for a book to cheer you up, this ain't it, Chief. It's it's heavy and sad and really good. I enjoyed this book a lot, and this is one of the main reasons why for me. I think that Rin, the main character, is great. She is antithetical to the typical young female heroine in the fantasy that I read. Rin is a desperate fool motivated by fear from beginning to end, at least in this first book. And that makes for an interesting main character that you can't take your eyes off of in the same way that you can't look away from a terrible car crash on the side of a road. She has a need and desire for approval and power that's so strong that she makes decisions driven from a selfish and self-preserving place. And not everyone turns into a hero at those crucial hero moments. I think that most people wouldn't, as much as we want to believe otherwise. And I appreciate that this book took what I feel is the more realistic route. At times, I think the author was a little purple prosy, I guess. There were occasional moments where a description or analogy of something went on for longer than I felt it needed to, and I would get impatient wanting the story to progress rather than continue for several more paragraphs, trying to drill into you this one image or concept. But despite all of the things I've said, which a lot of which sort of sounds negative, I really enjoyed this book and gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I flew through it. It was captivating and entertaining. The first part feels like a classic YA fantasy novel school setting, where our character makes friends, enemies, learns about her abilities, and has to navigate a place where she, doesn't belong and faces discrimination at every turn. And then once you have a basic understanding of how things work, who the players are, the story moves past the school setting into the real world, where things are a lot more intense and difficult than school could possibly prepare our characters for. There isn't a true romance plot in this story, though there is sort of a one-sided crush thing going on, which, while at times was a little annoying, at other points I felt it was very realistic. One-sided crushes happen all the time. And again, the magical element is interesting. Shamanism is interesting. I just wish that we saw more of it, actually. It's really varied and there are lots of things to potentially pull from, but we only get a small taste of it and don't really understand how it works beyond a couple specific cases. So I just recently learned the term grimdark as a genre, which is basically, fiction with a setting or tone that's particularly dystopian or violent or amoral. And that's what this book is for sure. It's a perfect description. I don't think that I've read much grimdark fantasy, so I might not be the best source for recommending great books, but I think that this might be a great introduction into grimdark fantasy, as well as being enjoyable for people who know the genre well. And who knows, maybe what I really took away from this book is that I'm a fan of grimdark fantasy. I am an inherently happy and optimistic person, so it's a little bit odd that when it comes to fantasy, I'm drawn to books with characters like Rin, where I feel like it's more realistic and relatable when someone turns away from the hero's path rather than walking down it. One could argue that Rin isn't a particularly complex main character, but I think that her motivations are very clear, what drives her is very clear, and for me, it's refreshing to have a heroine who isn't a goody two-shoes avatar of hope and righteousness. So that's it for my review of The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I am actually currently in the middle of reading the second book. So I will be posting a review for that one as well. I really enjoyed this. I liked the darkness of it, and I liked Rin as a character. So this was great. This was great to come to after trying to push through that last book that I read that I'm not sure if I'll mention. Maybe I'll mention it briefly. I don't really feel like going into a deep review of it, because it just clearly I struggled through it and didn't think it was that great. So anyway, again, I'm very sorry for my long absence. Just a lot of stuff going on. That COVID-19 life struggle just throwing everything upside down and then injecting Animal Crossing into that and just all the stuff going on. So thank you guys so much for sticking around. This channel is not dead. I don't plan on stopping uploading and recording videos. It just kind of depends on when I finish books and kind of what else is going on in my life. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and hope this video was helpful or interesting to you, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!